False Knight can be a pretty challenging boss, especially since he's the first one in the game. You kind of aren't ready for it because you don't know what to expect when you first jump into Hollow Knight, but False Knight will definitely put you in your place and you're going to figure it out pretty soon. So today, I'm going to help all of you beginners out there beat the False Knight boss in Hollow Knight. We're going to talk about his attack patterns, some strategies that you can use, and also the best charms, or charm in this case, since you start in the game fresh from the beginning. Okay, first of all, you need to know two different things. False Knight has a number of behaviors. The first move that False Knight will use is called Leap. He'll jump a small amount into the air to either reposition himself or prepare for a slam attack. He'll never leap twice in a row, so don't worry about that. Now, because we've just mentioned slam attack, this is when he will charge back. You'll see him like kind of charge up his mace for a moment, and then he swings it forward and slams it into the ground. This creates a shockwave that travels towards you in the arena. All you have to do is jump over that. You just got to time it right, hold in the jump button to jump higher, and then jump over that wave attack. In the second phase, which we'll talk about phases in a moment, this will also cause barrels to fall out of the sky. Then, he also has another ability that lets him move, and this is the charge ability. This is where he'll run a small distance to get closer to you if you're too far away, and he'll perform a leaping bludgeon attack at the end of the charge. Now, leaping bludgeon is when he leaps into the air and slams his mace down in front of him where he lands. You'll need to be careful when False Knight uses leaping bludgeon as well, because when you actually jump into the air, he'll try to target you and target where you just leapt from. One thing you notice when he's doing this, he'll lift the mace above his head and then swing it in an arc before he lands. This will then bring his body and mace down at the same time. Again, in different phases, this will also cause barrels to fall. Now, every hit of your old nail, which is the nail you have at the start of the game, will deal 5 damage. Now, here in this point, False Knight has 65 health. For his armor, once you have done enough damage to False Knight while he's in his armor, he'll get into a staggered mode where a little maggot will peek its head out where the helmet was. Now, this maggot has about 40 HP, you just have to defeat that once he's in his staggered phase. He will then get up and do his next ability. This is where he rages and starts to slam the ground left and right for about 3 seconds. Once he's done that, barrels will start to fall through, and then you've moved on to the second phase and the third phase and so on. Now, you only have to beat his armor 3 times in total. You'll have to beat his head though 4 times, because the third time you've beaten his armored phase, he will then get angry and start doing that rage mechanic again where he slams the floor. However, this time he will break the floor below you, and it will just drop straight down along with you. Once he's fallen, he'll be in that staggered state again where you can see his head. Quickly destroy his head, and that's how you beat the boss in total. Now, one thing to pay attention to as well when it comes to knowing things about False Knight, if you're struggling with this boss fight, you can just leave through the left-hand side of the arena after the first phase. This is when you've defeated his armor and the maggot pops out and you deal enough damage to that, and he rages once. The left wall will be weak and you can just escape through the left wall if this fight is too difficult. You'll get an ability that will help make this fight easier, but that option is there for players who are still struggling. Now, in the game you get charms, which I like to consider as perks. They give you different abilities and allow you to use different combinations to change how your gameplay works. At this point in the game, you're only going to have access to one, and that is Fury of the Fallen. Now, Fury of the Fallen costs 2 notches to equip, but this isn't an issue because really you're only going to have this one if you found it at the start of the game. Most new players will accidentally skip it, and I understand because I also did the same thing in my first run, but it's a pretty good charm to have, especially if you're taking damage from a boss like this. What the Fury of the Fallen charm does is when you've equipped it, it will increase your player's nail damage by 75%, when you're at 1 mask. Now, obviously this is a very difficult charm to use because you got to be quite skilled to survive with the 1 health, but it does come in handy when you're close to beating the boss and you're at that 1 HP level, when you can just start to clutch up in the fight. Now, don't worry though, because when the boss is raging and stuff like that, you do actually have time to heal and get some more masks back. One thing you have to notice here though, is that you don't actually start to gain soul when the boss is in his armor. The only time you gain soul in the fight is when you're beating on his maggot form, and that's when you start to get soul and you can heal straight after that while he's raging. You can find the Fury of the Fallen charm in the King's Pass. This is the area where you first started the game. Now if you've missed this, don't worry, you'll be able to get it back later on. Most people use the dash to get across the nails, but you can actually do a thing called pogoing, which is where when you're going down, if you hit the spikes with your nail, you can kind of bounce off them. So you can do that to get across the spikes to go and get this charm. If you've missed this, don't worry, you'll be able to get the mantis claws, which allow you to climb back up the wall back into King's Pass and go and get the charm. If you haven't missed this, then make sure you equip it if you haven't bought any of the charms, and it will make the False Knight fight easier, especially if he's starting to deal damage to you. Another tip and strategy to use here as well that most people don't know on their first playthrough, like myself, when the barrels are falling, you can actually hit those with your nail, and you can deal damage to the boss with them. Now, I didn't know this during my playthrough, so I didn't try to hit them, I just tried to avoid them and then go and hit the boss when I could. But make sure you use the barrels to the best of your ability. Then another tip for you is just take your time. Taking your time is literally not a bad thing at all here. Taking your time is a great way to just have fun and learn the mechanics of the game, because you're going to have to do a lot of dancing back and forth with some of these bigger bosses, and you're just going to need to get your timing on point. That does come just by playing the game, but you'll get there eventually. If this video helped you, please click the like button below and let me know what other Hollow Knight content you'd like to see. I'm looking forward to playing more Hollow Knight myself because the game's kind of got me hooked right now, and it's just an overall great time. Until then though, I will see you in the next one.